Diodario. Is it Diodario? Diodario? Who would know? Oh, Alice. Alice Brand. Alice Brand. Hello, Alice Brand. Okay. Okay. Right. I can't really see what I can see right now, so I'm going to use the mirror for a minute. Holy cow. Ladies and gents, he said, pushing the thing back. Something like that. Well, ladies and gents, not a very wide view, but we have a couple of guitars today to take care of on this Sunday, and both of these are DOMs. First one is a bit of a sorry state, and it's the first one I've ever had, well, not the first one I've ever had my hands on, but it's the first one I've ever seen, and it is the legendary Martin Backpacker. I won't tell you the name that Scott Grove gave to this guitar. He didn't describe it very sympathetically. Anyway, so you can see what we've got here is the legendary, infamous Martin Backpacker, designed to be used if you get stuck up a, oh my God, what's growing in there? I don't even want to know what that is. It's a piece of something, could be a cocoon. Yeah, designed to be used if you ever get caught up a creek without a paddle. But having said that, it's actually not a bad little thing for chucking in the back of the car. Oops, sorry, and off you going type of thing. Now it's probably horribly out of tune just now. Let me get the tuning fork. It's definitely head heavy. That's one thing you'll know about it. So as soon as we play it, it tries to go down like that. But you know, let's try that again. What note was that? Maybe this isn't such a good object after all. Where's the note? Oh! So if you were around the campfire, you could have some great fun time with this, okay? Yes, come on. Don't be so critical. Anyway, but you know, this one it's got some problems, okay? So I'll put it on the bench and we'll show you what they are. And they're not really worth fixing. Now, I don't mean that in any particularly bad way. It's just this guitar appears to have dried out or something over the years. So what we appear to have here is some serious drying, shrinking. So if you look across the sound hole, you can see it's all gone weeble shaped. And the reason it has is because over there we've got quite a significant depression, which is usually typical when the guitar dries out and the whole thing there scoops away, sinks basically. You can see that hollow, and the result is that it will crack as well. Now technically, if that's right, and that is why that's shrunk and fallen in that way, which I doubt doubt there's any other reason. You could look at humidifying it for a couple of years or something, and then having another look at it and seeing whether it's worth fixing that split or not. In fact, there's more than one split. There's one there and there's one happening under here, which you can't really see very well, but it's growing. But to be honest, it's not really that kind of guitar. It is the kind of guitar that you want to take out on your holidays this summer and play, and I totally get that. So what I've suggested to Dom with this guitar is actually, it isn't that unplayable as it stands, but what I think it would benefit from is a Tusq nut, some decent string winding. This is a bit of an abomination here, and that one goes the wrong way, but we'll put some good strings on, a Tusq nut. We'll lower the action down here because there's plenty of room for it down here. We'll give it a little clean, but nothing major, because this is a chuck in the back of the car guitar. So the aim will be to just make this bit play really nicely. In fact, what I'll do is I'll polish the frets with a fret rubber as well, but no massive undertaking to change it, fix it, because it would take too long to rehydrate this, and there wouldn't necessarily be any guarantee of getting this back to flat anyway, even if you did. I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert on acoustic stringed instruments, but I think given that it plays not bad considering, and we can also achieve a significant action reduction there whilst retaining the break angle. You can see how extreme that is. We've got loads of adjustment room. We can get that really low, and with new strings and a Tusq nut, that thing will stay in tune, especially if we stretch the strings out. Okay, so that a quick sort of close-up-y thing. Sorry about where this is pointing right now. I'll switch to the wide-angle camera if I can't see what's going on. Also, within that, we've got another one of Dom's, and it's this one here. It's a vintage, is it the 400? No, VE900 mahogany. It's not a bad-looking beast. And this one actually has, basically, it's room for adjustment at both ends. Both the pieces here are Tusq material, and actually what it means is that both of them are adjustable without spending loads of money putting extra Tusq bits in. Good brake angle over the saddle down there, a reasonably well fitted nut with a bit of room for downward adjustment. So this one is going to be in a sense easier as well, or easy-ish, because we can just improve the action, get some new strings on it, and it will sound great. So I'll just quickly give you a fly through, and I'm going to do these two together as one job, if you get what I mean. Now both of these have a little bit of bellying. This one, sorry about my handsome looks getting in the way there. This one does have a problem brewing. I don't know how well you'll be able to see that, but in time that is going to come off further. The question is, this is a budget guitar, right? You could rip this off now. You could try and put some glue underneath it. Putting glue into something that's already raised up, I don't know how effective that would be. It might hold it a little bit longer until the shape changes a bit more. Because if you think about it, you've got a flat piece here trying to sit on top of a thing that's curving over time, so it ends up looking a bit like this. You put the two together. Sorry. Put the two together. What you do as you're told. So there's your bridge with a nice flat bottom, sort of something like that with your pegs. And then over time, what happens is something not so good, and you get the whole thing suddenly starts to go like that, which is a bit extreme. And what you tend to find is that the bridge starts by trying to bend with it, so the whole thing kind of starts to bend under pressure, and eventually at the back end, like you can see, it starts to break because it just doesn't like this thing on top of the rosewood wants to be straight more than it wants to bend, and this thing here, the top, is thinner, so it bends kind of easily, if I can spell easily. And so the two are trying to come apart really, and that's what you can see. It's one of those things that I've seen on acoustics. Again, I'm not a trained string instrument repair person, so I have no qualifications in wood and stuff like that, but I have some knowledge of what I've seen. And most guitars, acoustic guitars, are in some process of deformation, and I think every time I say that, I feel quite seditious. No, seditious, yeah. Like I'm committing some heresy. And then people will say, well, they're not meant to be completely flat. And then they sort of show examples of expensive guitars that aren't completely flat. But in most flat top guitars, you start out with a relatively flat top, if not completely flat. And then over time, what you start to see is a degree of bellying on the top, which kind of shows up as this gap in the middle, and it sort of increases sort of behind the bridge. And whether it was intended to be 100% flat or not, you tend to then start to notice how mismatched they are. If this starts to really belly, this goes up, so the action goes up. This bends, and so it starts to crack or come off if the glue can't hold onto it. You also, when it gets worse, you also see often a folding in of this joint. So this neck is trying to be pulled that way. And because to begin with, because it can't go that way, it tends to sink in and lift up. So the two pieces I've found in the past seem to be kind of fighting, and it's all to do with this 200 and some pounds of loading. You might say that the reason why this pulls the bridge into a bit of a belly here, it can be a mixture of just the sheer force of the strings, or it can be to do with if the guitar gets over humidified, it can quite often lift up, or the wood swells so it can't go anywhere. I'm not sure that's the main case here. I think most of these guitars seem to suffer primarily from the string loading. And if you think about it, you've got a thin top to make a lovely sound. You brace it as much as you can in your factory or your design workshop, and then you put on this thing that just spends the rest of its life pulling this way and trying to pull and rotate this bridge around this front edge, and so naturally it drags this back of the guitar into more of a belly over time. And because it's wood, it can't really resist it very well. The better they're made, the better the bracing, the more innovative, and so on. And looking down here, there's some interesting sort of unevenness here that looks like some cracking that may have been glued or something. I'm not sure, but it's definitely uneven. But it's it's character, and it's great. Who cares? It's not perfect, but so in my experiences, most older or most budget guitars end up in this process somewhere along the line. And when I look at it, for a budget guitar like this, if you run out of adjustment, first of all, your adjustment can come from here and here if the height is not too extreme or the action is not too extreme. So you need brake angle available to you to do this. As I've shown on other videos, if you don't have available brake angle, like this one down here is always the marginal one. If to lower this would result in there not being enough brake angle to make a good anchor or a good fulcrum, what we can do is we can cut slots just in front of these pegs, which allow the string to exit closer to the saddle, which gives it a higher brake angle, because it's coming up from somewhere down there and it's being forced up the side of the hole and out at the top. But really it would be better if it came out closer. So a little slot in the front of these can give you back more playing life, even if technically your brake angle doesn't seem to really want to let you do it. This one I think will be fine. We can get we can get all the reduction I want to do today done on this one without needing to cut the slot in there. But if we get anywhere close to it, then I will be prepared to cut the slot, particularly on that one. You can see the E is always the lowest angle. Well, it's usually both E's actually, but this one somehow seems to withstand it better. Maybe it's because it's usually a little bit higher anyway by default. So it's the high E is your sort of litmus, really. So if you've got an unplayably high action, which this guitar hasn't got, but it can be improved. If you have an unplayably high action on an acoustic and there doesn't appear to be any more adjustment you can make anywhere, it is usually because either it's just been set badly at the very start, sorry, just email come in there. It's because this has been set too high to begin with, and usually you can make that adjustment, bring it down, and everything's good. If over time you find the action raising again, it's usually because of this changing geometry between the neck and the body and the bellying of the bridge, which can then result in the thing, the action raising high enough to make this feel terrible. So we still look for action adjustment here, And of course there's a bit here which will make this, we can set this a little bit lower to make this as light as possible. But being a Tusq nut, it should be in fairly good shape tuning wise. So I usually find guitars in some stage of this process of changing shape, beyond a few months old into a couple of years old, you may start to see yourself running out of adjustment room here for the reasons I've spoken about. And eventually you get to a point in an acoustic guitar's life where there's no more adjustment room there, and the only place in any acoustic, whether it's budget or not, the only thing you've got left is to remove the neck and reset the basic geometry, the way the neck relates to the body, because it's acknowledging that this whole geometry has changed as this distorts, if you like, because of the loading. The problem with the cheaper acoustic guitars is that in a quality acoustic you often find this stays in a straight line and the whole thing changes and this box deforms. In a cheaper acoustics, what you very often find is that the neck deforms as well at this point, so you get a neck that goes like that and then dives in. Now when that happens, you have a trouble to straighten that out. Plus the fact, actually, you don't even really have to worry about that, because if you've got a budget acoustic that needs a neck reset, from what I've researched about the process, it's both very expensive and very complex. It requires taking the neck off, pulling out all these frets here, steaming off the neck joint on a guitar like this, I would say, taking it off, totally changing or microscopically accurately changing the angle of this to a calculated angle that will give you back a different alignment, and so on and so forth. And it's just hundreds and hundreds of pounds of work, which doesn't make sense for a vintage acoustic. So when it comes to me, when people bring guitars like this to me, my assessment really is based on, can I do anything useful for you? You know, is the guitar got room for the kind of improvements that I can make? And if I can't, what sort of advice would I be saying to you about what this guitar needs in the future? And you know, when it comes to a vintage brand guitar, whilst it being a nice sounding thing, you'd be better off buying a newer second-hand one of these than spending more on getting it, getting the neck joint reset. That's my take on it. But you know, the thing that comes into all of that we can't really venture an opinion on is sentimental value. So for example, not with this guitar, but somebody's bringing me a guitar this afternoon, which means I better get on, bringing me a guitar this afternoon which is high sentimental value. It's an old Hondo 2 Les Paul, and as a result, you know, they want to refurbish it and make it play like it never did before, because it means it's a special guitar and it means something to them. But it's not worth it from the outset. And sometimes people in YouTube feedback get very uptight about that, and they say, why are you encouraging your customer to spend X amount on this when it's only a Hondo? It'll never be anything more than a Hondo 2. And of course the bit that they can't know is that it's sentimental value, and actually that steps outside of the normal economic considerations. Of course, I do always make a point of saying to somebody, you know, you do realise that if you spend 400 or 500 quid refretting this, putting brand new pickups in, new bridge, new tuners and whatever, it'll only be a Hondo 2 as far as the selling market is concerned, and people know that, you know. But I tell them that anyway. Sometimes they think I'm insulting their intelligence because they know that and they still want to do it because it's their special guitar. But I like to sort of cover my bases. Okay, so take a breath. I've been talking always too fast. So I'm going to do this. I've got a couple of hours to do both of these. It's not an absolute ton of stuff to do. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to start with this one by reducing the saddle down a little bit. Now I'm going to measure what the action is. It won't be terribly high. It's not. This one doesn't really have too many problems in terms of action height, but let's just have a look to start off with. We can reduce it. So currently it's standing at 2.5, about 2.6, something like that. So we'll just make a note of the vintage last fret low E is 2.6, and we also need to know the high E. And the high E is 2. Now we can get, from experience, we can go on an acoustic like this without needing fret leveling. We can usually go to a target of 2 on the bass side and 1.5 on the treble side. And that's a nice low action, and you do that almost always without risking needing fret leveling, unless there's something particularly unusual in the fretboard. But with an old guitar like this, it's been played smooth. It's very rare for that to be the case. So on the high E, I'm going to minus 0.6 of a millimeter as measured at the last fret as I do it, and on the high E, I'm going to lose 0.5 millimeters. So you can see first of all that that's almost a straight cut across, or a straight sanding across the saddle. Now, the interesting thing is, if I measured it at the 12th fret, then it would be sort of easier, because I could double the thing and take twice the amount off than I need there, because it's twice the distance. I think that's about the way it works out. But it's a little bit of a different calculation when you use the last fret, as I do. And I do because it's how I reckon what a sort of a workable playing action is. So it's just my particular way of doing it. So what I tend to do, and it's very unscientific because I've never worked this out mathematically because it's not my forte. What I do is, if I need this 0.5 off, I'm going to go with 0.5. Now that means it won't be, that 0.5 here won't translate to 0.5 there. It'll translate to less than 0.5. But that's good because it gives me a good margin. So I'll go with the 0.5 first, have a play, feel it, and if everything's good, I might take a tiny bit more off. But you see that I can take it down controlled. And I like to do it that way. It's quite touchy-feely, it's not precise science, but it works for me. So that's what I'm going to do. Now the other thing that we'll find is, as soon as I start lowering that end there, we will find that the first fret action now will lower it as well. And it may be that either comes down perfectly to the right height, which is great, or if it goes too low, then we're going to have to replace the nut or shim it if we haven't got money to spend on replacing it. And both things are possible. If we replace it, we're talking about a tenner's worth of new nut, and it's not a bad thing, not a bad investment to do. If we're talking about shimming it, we can glue a piece of similar material to the bottom, and we'll be able to just bump it up a little bit and cut down if necessary. Now, straight away we now have to remove the saddle, which is a little bit of a grip problem unless you want to take the strings all off. So we have to sort of try and encourage it to come up out of its slot and come out without doing too much damage. But I want to leave the strings in, so I've done a bit of a sort of dragging it sideways. So there's the Tusq based, it's Tusq. So we know we can take 0.6 of a mil off, and then we'll try it again. So for this point in time, I'm going to hang the guitar on the thing. Ooh. Now I have a new nut chosen for the I better not call it what Scott Grove calls it. I'd have to put what is it, child not friendly advisory on it if I used the name that Scott Grove called it. So shall we not do that? Now if I want to go with this, I could say I'm going to take off 0.7, right? Because it's a little more than the 0.6, but that's still under the total height that it would be, and we know that we're taking a fraction less at the treble end than at the bass end, and kind of when you put this down and mark it up, you'll pretty quickly see that it's an incredibly close thing. You almost no way of totally accurately marking this fraction of a millimeter to precision. So I'm afraid there is a degree of, let's suck it and see. Now of course, if you get it wrong with a saddle like this, you can always put a little plastic strip underneath to shim it, or a bone strip, or whatever you've got. So it's not the end of the world. and shimmed saddles are as good as anything, especially if you glue the bit to the bottom and then reshape it to what you want. So you've got plenty of bites at it, if you know what I mean. Let's have a look what we can see here, sort of. So I'm going to give that as my start point, and what I can do is get a bit of marker pen on it. Now again, this is very difficult to keep this marking only within the line, but if I'm very careful I might be able to do it, and it gives me my sort of target line, and partly good because this other pen is likely to rub off. So there's my guide target. Now what I'll get up is my, oh, I keep forgetting to buy the blasted stuff I need. I need more of that carpet sticky tape. So what I'm going to do now, and this has got a bad angle on the bottom of this anyway. So what I'm going to do is I have to be cautious about this. I'm not quite sure how this was standing in the slot, and it's got a bottom that isn't perpendicular to the side. So I may need to err on the side of caution with this one, because it is likely to be tilting one way a little bit too much. So first of all, I'm going to have to take it down and try to get it as flat and perpendicular as I can to begin with. That would be the sort of primary start point, and it's not terribly easy to do. You have to sort of, it's a bit of a suck it and see thing, but I know that I'm doing this within the range of adjustment that I've set, so I should be able to get this to a perpendicular base close. Okay, so with a perpendicular base, I now want to go a little bit more on the height, but just to be cautious. That still feels odd. That doesn't feel quite right to me, but that's just a feel thing. It is difficult to do this in any scientifically precise way. You probably could make a jig of some sort for precision angle grinding on this, but you know, my feeling is it's a bit of trial and error-y thing. So as long as I stay within the marked adjustment, I can be constantly checking the way it's cutting, and I want to keep it as right angled as possible. Now you can see that it clearly played before with it not being right angled, so it's not the end of the world, but it isn't a bad target to aim for to get that right angled. It gives the saddle a better contact with the under saddle piezo strip, and I guess that was working some way or other before, so it wasn't the end of the world. Okay, so we're getting there. Sometimes it's good to change it round, because you tend to find you put a little bit more weighting on one hand or the other, and you can wander off the vertical if you're not careful, or you can end up not taking the same amount all across the saddle. So that's not going too badly. I'm working on the middle one here, and just taking my time, and I'm doing a silly shuffle dance at the same time, because I want to keep the piece in as consistent an attitude as possible, so I can be sure not to end up with a totally out of shape piece. Right, so we're approaching the line on here, and I'm shifting now to the finest sandpaper, and I'm just going to use this hopefully to finish off the piece. And what I'm really caring about now, more than anything else, is just getting that perpendicular finish, but as slow as I can with this 240 grit that I'm using here. So it's still just about approaching the line. It's flatter than it was, but it's not completely perfect, but we're sort of on the mark for how much we want to take off, and I'm going to give it a little bit more vertical if I can, and then we'll stop and have a feel of it. And this, I suspect this will be somewhere between the last fret measured thing and the 12th fret. No, it'll be halfway between the 0.6 as measured at the 12th the last fret, sorry, and the actual amount that we need when you factor in that we're actually adjusting it at the saddle, which is further away. Anyway, I think you get what I mean, probably. Okay, so I'm just easing off the pressure now. I just want this to level out as good as it can be. I'd say we're on the mark for height, and I'm just only going to worry about the perpendicularness. And now this way I'm going to get it where I'm pretty confident it's perpendicular. I'm going to just lightly sand this now until I'm convinced it's level. And this is purely a sort of skin of the teeth, no, skill and experience thing. Okay, that's good. So we're on the mark, and we're pretty much spot on at the mark. Given that there was a bit of lean in the first place, I'm comfortable not going past the mark at this stage. Let's see how it plays first. So it's not a big deal to do this in 2 stages, because it gives you a degree of caution. You know, you don't risk overdoing it. You get a chance to have a try at it. And if it, you know, my way of doing this is if when I tighten the strings on this, if it plays and feels great, then I'll stop there. There's no point overdoing it just to take it down to some notional maximum lower limit, you know, just because I can, or, you know, if it feels right, then it's good, and we've made an improvement, and that's really what matters, not that we got it to some particular measurement. This looks nice and low. Okay, now let's get our thing. See? Okay, not to worry about the tuning for a second. Just going to have a look at the action. I suppose I need my measuring thing back. I haven't finished with you yet. So we had, what did we have, 2.6 before, and we are down, I would say we are down on almost exactly 2. Sorry, and I would say that's about 1.4. 1.4, something like that. It's very, very close. Now the question is, with this reduction, are we okay without, is the break angle okay? Has it tolerated this adjustment without running out of angle on that E string? We'll find out. Oof, tuning. Horrible. Well, do you know what? That's perfect. I like that as it is. So, let's have a quick look at what's happening at the first fret end. Now I think this is going to be quite low, but it still may be workable as is. But the challenge may be now to widen the slots, because on the thingy side, they're a bit deep. They're also now below 4.4, so they're barely 0.3. That's about as low as I want them to go. So actually this is workable. It's pretty well set. What I want to do, if anything, is just to widen the slots, particularly on these high strings here, because they're too deep and there's a risk of them holding on to the thingies. Now I have just got bought from my friend JT a set of these Tusq files. Technically I could use them on this, and I haven't used them before, so let's have a look. We're going to start with the highest, thinnest one. Now the reason I bought these, and it's a bit of a long old thing, but right, 10, that's the 10 one. The reason I bought these is because what they do is by definition, they create a notch. I'm going to avoid them just for a minute. They create a notch effect, which is the one thing I actually found over the years is really helpful in getting nut slots that don't grab the strings. And I figured out that they were more like this than they are like the Chinese, Japanese nut files that I've spent so much money on in the past. These things, these cut straight walled slots, but actually they're very flexible, so they cut slightly wiggly ones. Obviously they're so thin you can't really make them that much stiffer, no matter what sort of backings you build onto them, and I've done all kinds of things. So what you really want is something stiffer than that, but also something with a kind of notch shape, so that not only do you cut the base of the slot right, which this thing does and that thing does, but you also want some degree of the characteristic of the notch, so that everything above the string guarantees it doesn't pinch the string. That's crap for that, whereas this is actually perfect. So this turned out to be the best of all of them, and I've not yet used it because I want to do a bit of practice on it before I use it. So I'm going to begin right now with the one I know how it works and the result I can get from it. So, I mean, I should do the B as well. So all I'm doing with these is I'm aiming to widen the slot in a bit of a notch shape, and I want to be careful when I'm doing it, and that's why I'm tilting it back quite significantly. I want to widen it but avoid lowering that slot at the front edge. And I can see this has got quite a bit of gunge in it, which then is a good guide for me to know that I haven't cut to the front of the slot yet. And as long as I don't do that, I know that I haven't lowered it any, but I have widened it so that it's no longer a straight wall. Good. Now, if you find that these slots end up being just visually too deep, then what I would normally do is recut the top of this nut and file it down. Basically, when the strings are off, get it with a file and just take the whole lot, all the excess material off, everything above the strings, basically, because you just simply don't need it. It's just extra material getting in your way. Now these appear to be okay, but I will also still give them that little bit of a widening effect. Again, still sort of leaning right back on them so that we've got a downward reach, and hopefully no lowering at the front edge where the height is dictated. So it doesn't hurt to do all of these a little bit. And you know, if I'd have played around a bit more, I would have had a go with the Hosco files, but they're new to me at the moment. That one looks pretty clean. Yeah, so I mean, you know, you can do. I'll give you an example. If you don't like the shape of the way the nut looks after you've done that kind of adjustment, it is so easy. It's so easy to file it down with a sanding stick like this. Now, I've got new strings to put on here, so there's absolutely no problem that I could file down here. And you'll probably notice that most of the material is going to come off the treble side, which is fine, and it will almost in a minute we'll be down to the level of the strings again, so it doesn't matter too much if we cut into them. So what I would be suggesting is now when we take the strings off, no, they're not strings, the strings off, we can also cut a little bit further down, because we sort of know where we're aiming for. I don't know how well that shows up in this, but we can clean the whole lot up so it's all a little bit whiter, fresher looking. But the main reason for doing this is just to reduce the notchy look of this thing. But the notch in and of itself is a very productive shape as far as ease of tuning goes, you know. And actually, when I realised that, and I realised the complete and utter limitation of this Japanese file, I very rude. I rued the day that I spent all that money on those Japanese files, I have to say. Right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all the strings, and we'll finish the nut tweak, and then we will clean the fingerboard and give the frets a once over with fret rubbers. Just a little bit of a clean up as a sort of courtesy thing. It's only 10 minutes of vigorous work. Now we've got 1253 gauge strings to replace with. These are D'Addario's. I've been bitten recently by getting fake Martin strings. Can you believe? They're only about £6 or something, and they were the most hideous bright brass coloured things I ever saw in my life. Very much like the cheapest of the Chinese knockoff or throwaway strings. I have to say, I'd never seen a set of Martin strings that colour, so I could be wrong. Maybe there are some, but I just dumped them straight away. They were horrible. And got some D'Addario phosphor bronzy colour, and I'm pretty certain the ones I bought from Martin were phosphor bronze, but maybe either they were forgeries, fakes, or I bought some other weird thing, I don't know, bell brass coloured things. Okay, so while I'm here, I'm not really looking at the film angles. Sorry. While I'm here, then let's just gently tweak the remaining top of this, just so it's equally cut, and then we'll continue a little bit more of the cut down on the treble side, and then we've got a nice tidy slope, and then you can work it with other gauges of paper. This is the 240, I think, and you can round off any bits that you know have been catching the hands or whatever, and then a sort of once over on the bit you've just done gives it that sort of cleaner finish. And if you want to, you can. It's not really necessary. It's only cosmetic, but you could go further into sanding it with 600 grit or something like that. But I'm going to leave it like that. It is a slightly different colour because it's taken a few years of grease and grime off it. So what I'm going to do now is, with a cloth, with this cloth, Ivy Wed, I'm going to clean up the fingerboard, and then we'll find, oh hell, yeah, the fret rubbers. we'll get the fret rubbers from here, and we will get ready for a fret rubber treatment with our fret protector strip. Hopefully we'll do the same for the for that one that's called the Martin. So this is just to give the frets a bit of a de-gunge. There will be, good old guitar has usually got a nice build-up of user's finger grease of old, and it's partly what gives rosewood or those kinds of dark woods, their rich, lustrous look about them. This has got some sticky stuff that's fallen on it from somewhere in the past, which we can take off. Yes, I don't know what that was, but something stuck to there. Difficult. Something baked on, I would call it. Come off. Yeah. So, it's not a matter of making it look brand new. It's just about getting some of the excessive goo off. There's a little blob of something there that needs to come off. Okay. Oh, and while I'm at it, let's do a quick clean-up of the rest of it. So that's the nut done. So as you saw, height-wise and everything, by the time we readjusted the playing action of the bridge height, well, last fret action as I call it, you can see that by the time we did that, the final nut height first fret action was good enough, just about right actually. So the only adjustment I did there was to open up the slots and slightly reshape the nut to make it work with those slightly opened up slots. So I'm just taking some of the grime off this, just so it feels a bit less sticky to play. It feels like it's had a bit of a trip to the Turkish barber or something. And then the next bit will be the frets. Give the frets a sort of quick fret rubber treatment. Now this isn't like a complete sand out and polish out that you do if you were leveling frets, right? But this is a sort of, in the price or cheap, this isn't a full fret leveled setup. So in the absence of that, this is about getting a refreshed fret rather than shined to the mirror finish. Yeah, there's some damage on here that's might split or something, and it's been glued together. Okay, so the fret rubbery business, it's rubbery. It's not difficult, or it's not highly scientific even. You get your fret rubber and you run over the frets through the strip. This could be done with masking it off, for example. You don't have to do it, but this is a quicker way of doing it because I'm not charging for a full masked off 20 step sanding and leveling or crowning and sanding process. So this is just about a nice refresh to lighten them up and get rid of any gunge on them. Probably will have a bigger impact on the Martin, which looks a bit more corrosion and stuff on the frets. But with this one, we'll just go down with the darker one, which is the heavier grit, and then back up with the lighter grit one. And then I'm going to sort of put it down there. So it's resting on its headstock now, or on its base more than anything. It's a bit clumsy, and I found that you have to create this Gorilla Tape skirt to hold the thing in place, to try and hold the metal protector strip whilst applying enough force to actually work this rubber is nigh on impossible. So I came up with the skirted idea so that I can hold it further back and it stays in place, and I can achieve the same thing without the thing flipping out of my hands all the time. So it's a bit less stressful. Anyhow, I was up in London a couple of days this week. I was taking Andy Partridge's guitars back to him in Swindon, and I took the opportunity to go on up from there to visit my mum in Barnet. And while I was there, I also took the opportunity to use some civilized bandwidth and got my backlog of video files uploaded. And a couple of people, well, there's been a comment about the audio quality on one of them, and I've in editing them for upload, or exporting them I should say for upload, I've had the chance to sort of listen a little bit to this type of recording, and I have to say that while I do like the consistent signal to noise ratio that you get with this head mounted mic, it does, for my liking, it does produce a less dynamic sound because it strips out the ambient sound that tends to make, well, simply makes a recording sound more real, binaural, or whatever people like to call it. So while the head mounted thing is good for the sort of voice to camera, if you were doing a voiceover, it would be a very good option. I'm still in two minds as to whether it's the way I want to continue to go with sound. I think theoretically from the 11th of June we're supposed to be getting some proper fibre optic connection to our home finally, which means I'll be able to upload much more immediately from finishing a job and get the upload done hopefully the same day. And that, I'm hoping that will kind of give me a bit of a refreshed look on the scope of things, or the range of things I cover. For example, people keep saying they miss Morris, and I definitely wanted to do a video of just Morris in his natural environment and catch up with him, see how he is. But the problem is that if I make it 10 or 15 minutes, then I either have to kind of remember to store it up for 3 weeks and send it over to Bert, or now maybe different if I can get it posted the same day, and it might be, I think the fact it will be much more immediate, I'm hoping will kind of inspire me a bit more with doing some other things. You never know, I may still be entirely uninspired. But I also, on the recent crop of videos, I also put back on, or allowed YouTube to put on its default choice of ads for monetizing, partly because having truth is, having thought about the audience and trying to minimize the disruption in my videos for any audience, it's kind of done me a great disservice, in that not only has it cost me a couple of $100 a month, which isn't a lot, but it's something, but it's cost me that, and I'm not too worried about that. But what it's also cost me, it appears, is any appearance in YouTube's search algorithm, and I guess sort of understandably, but it's a bit shabby, I guess that YouTube has decided that if it's going to put anything up in front of an audience, it's going to put up stuff that will make it most money. So stuff where someone like me has deliberately reduced the amount of advertising, or I guess we could even say where people have chosen to demonetize, consciously. It seems like YouTube has kind of said, well, we can't be bothered with that crap, it's not going to make us any money, so you can all disappear into the wilderness of forgotten something, which appears to be what has happened. So I kind of, much as I'd like to keep it to a minimum for viewers and stuff, I sort of think that I need to put it back on, because otherwise I'm just not going to appear anywhere. And the thing I really need those videos to do, or and they do it for me, but what I need and continue to do is to bring customers who like what I do to my stuff, or to me directly. So I don't think I can afford to kind of take a hit in that. So it's sort of with a bit of a heavy heart. I wanted to experience, I wanted to see what taking the ads down to a minimum would do, and whether I could feasibly get along without that. But I think YouTube has made such a distinct choice about that. Of course, what it's done is it's forced me and others to pay for the premium, and actually I'm not at all unhappy about that. I think, I've said before on these videos that for me YouTube is such an important, valuable environment, that it brings me qualified customers. And by that I mean people who have already made up their minds that they want me to do their guitars. That you couldn't get a better qualified customer than that, right? There's no selling to do. And that is down to what I do and what YouTube allows me to do. So I've got a vested interest in YouTube carrying on doing that. So I'm happy to support YouTube doing that with a paid premium membership. I'm also happy to pay for that because I use it an awful lot for watching good quality video content from around the world, and I value that. So I think the subscription model. In fact, I cancelled Spotify after many years because it turns out that YouTube for me is a better use of my money. Even for listening to music, I can get what I want from YouTube. So I guess I'm in principle as well as practically. I think everyone, we would be better off going to, if you don't want advertising, I think it's actually better that you go to a premium model than it is for me to disappear off the face of the content map, content universe, because understandably Google's going to deprioritize my content because it doesn't make any money for it. And of course it has a vested interest in making the ad-free experience X amount better. Quite understandably, if that's what's going to get people to sign up for it, to get rid of the ads, then it's in its interest to keep making it a relatively unwatchable experience for free. And I get it, I don't begrudge them that. So I think all of that is coming down to, I think I may actually reinstate on my current and upcoming videos, I may just reinstate the advertising in the way that YouTube thinks they should be, so that I get, or to see whether I regain some relevance or positioning back. And it could be, it could be completely because I don't do anything very clever with my videos, and it could be that everyone's bored of them, and I'm not trying to look everywhere for blame except me, type of thing. But I have noticed that as soon as I switched off the ads, of course my revenue went down to a quarter of what it was, but also I seem to appear to be, or seem to be lacking any visibility in the content creators universe. So because I rely on YouTube for my customers, because I think it's a good product and it's worth paying the premium for, and because I think they have a right to make their ad supported model more and more annoying and inconvenient, and to encourage people to go with the premium model, I guess I think I better probably stop resisting that and shooting myself in the foot, fighting for a cause that actually I don't really believe in terms of, ultimately I think it's a good, worthwhile, paid premium model, hence I'm paying for it. So you see what I'm saying? I don't believe in I'm kind of been fighting for something I don't believe in particularly, so I think I may need to look at that. And so I've switched the ads back on, recent ones. You know, and also in the past, people have said, people who value what I've put out as content, but haven't bought an ebook or don't send me their guitars, it's a good way for them to say thanks for any value that they get. And you know, a lot of people I've seen in the past say, you know, do put this on, reinstate that, because you know we can give you back something for the help you've given. And I often get into that thing of, look, I didn't put this stuff up there first and foremost as an altruistic thing to help you, but it still doesn't change the fact that, you know, good content or useful information can help people, and that they are as a result grateful for learning something. So anyway, that's just a sort of little aside. But I think that I'm hoping that with some home upload ability, I might feel a bit more inspired to do some stuff, but also I've got the option then to do some live stuff if I want to, albeit from home, but you know, it's still better than nothing. I'm not sure I could do any live streaming from here, the workshop, because I'm very gratefully piggybacking onto a pretty feeble site internet connection, but absolutely not complaining, because I'm very grateful to be able to do it. First stretch. Stretchy, stretch, stretch. Carefully stretch, stretch. So really all that remains to do on this guitar is do stretching. Funny, let's get in. Let's just pull the ball up into place. That's fine. Sometimes people, you know, when you see them offering guitar services and they talk about intonating acoustic guitars, part of the service. You can't. That's interesting. Hear that? Little pull there. That was the D that pulled. Beautiful. So yeah, when you come to intonating an acoustic guitar, the intonation is set by this compensated saddle malarkey, and they're short of cutting your own and rearranging the position of the apexes for each string on a 3mm or less strip of Tusq, or well, finish the sentence, there's nothing you can do to intonate it. The only other thing you could do is fill that, if it was really wrong, you could fill the slot and route a new one and reposition the whole saddle and go it again from a new position, but you'd have to be seriously off to require you to do that. Aha, G. So I'm noticing that G is just, whoops, creaked a little bit there. So I think what we need to do is just check out that G slot before we call this one done. And the G slot still looks quite deep, and actually it doesn't look like it's been, I've actually done much to it. So I'm going to cut backwards with the file, and I'm going to ensure that I'm widening this slot as much as possible, so that there's no chance of that G sticking. Okay, that's better. Right, that's it. The Vintage is done. Okay, so we're going to move on now. The reason I'm being brusque is that I've got a customer coming at 5 o'clock, so I need to be done and ready, and I don't want to be rushing back. So, nearly dropped it. Okay, so that's the Vintage done. Let's check the time. Here we go for the Martin Backpacker. The time now is 15:02. Okay. Right. Oh, how different that sounds, eh? So let's have a look at yeah, we're in view. Okay, so remember, let's measure the I'm not showing my hatred for this guitar, but let's measure the last fret. So we have just over 3.2 and 2.3, 3.2 and 2.3, 3.2 and 2.3, 3.2 and 2.3. So that would lose 1.2, and that would lose 0.8. Okay, that's the reduction if I'm going to go down to whatever I said it was. You know what I said. Thingamy. 2 and 1.5. And this, again, there's no reason fret-wise that this shouldn't withstand that. So these are, somebody put these on in the horrible locky way. I don't know if you can see there, but ew, please don't do that. I sort of get it, but yucks. Ignore that. It's just, I'll kind of try and make it clear how I do it on this one. I'll get a bit of a better zoom up in a minute on the, oops, sorry, on the nut end. Oh, we're on the nut. Okay. Well, I'm going to need these strings on for a minute. Ugh. I've never seen so much wire around one thing. What I'm going to do, just for a minute, is I'm going to try and cut some of this off. Gee whiz. If I can stand a chance of getting it off at all. So I don't have to work with all of this. God darned. Can I cut down here? Let's cut in here. Ooh. Right. Yucks. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I can't stand people tying knots in strings, because it makes it nigh on impossible to get the things out at the other end of the day, and you end up having to cut several times, or at worst you end up cutting your fingers on them trying to get them out. Right, now this one first of all has got the what's it come undone, so I don't know what's happened there. Let's just see if that will do up. Yes, it will. Okay, that's good. We'll rewind this one on with a little bit of wire there. So what I'm just trying to do, like before, I'm just going to undo these far enough to take off the saddle, but I also want to replace the nut on this one. Give it a Tusq nut. So we take this off. Now you might say, you know, a travel guitar like this with a split in the body, a completely dried out body, why on earth would you put any effort into, you know, or money into a new nut or anything else, or time spent, you know, adjusting the playing action? Well, my take on it is because it can play a lot better than it currently does, and if you're going to have it, it's actually quite a fun guitar, and I think it's fun partly because it's in the kind of condition where nobody's going to be precious about it, and I think that in itself is quite a nice state, and it gives a different experience when you're playing it. So I'm not at all bothered by its condition. I think it still deserves to be made to play really well, and my calculation is that for, you know, a few quid, well, you know, in terms of investing in a Tusq nut that will guarantee that it stays in tune, or help it stay very well in tune, and a bit of work on the nut thing, saddle, you know, we can get a really well performing guitar. Now, first thing I'm going to do is try to knock off the original nut, and with all of these things recently, it's a hit and miss game. That's taken the nut off cleanly, but it's left a little bit of bone behind. It sounds a bit grim, but I'm just going to sort of crack that off, baby. You can see it's glued. It's been so well glued that the actual bone is kind of stuck in the corner. Now, getting that off, as you can see, is not actually very easy, so we're just trying to chip it out of the right angled groove. There you go, that's good. So what we do is we replace it with this one. Now this is a little bit thinner, so it won't stick out as far, but it's a good start. Now what we had is we had a certain height of this one, so we can take a guide height and we can get close to it. What I'd prefer to do, if possible, is avoid cutting the slots down on here, but when you're working from the base upwards, or i.e. you're kind of positioning a nut 7.6, when you're trying to put a nut on without get it to the right first fret action without cutting the slots, it can be quite tricky. So this actually looks like, according to this, it should be almost the right height. Let's have a look and see who's telling the truth. Now I'm not going to glue it on right now, I just want to put it under some load. First of all, we're going to go the right direction for that string, and we'll do this one too. Obviously it's going to pull everything off to the wrong side. Now if the original nut was taller than this one, then we're going to have a slight shimming problem, but there's nothing we can do about that because this is the closest Tusq replacement I could find for this guitar. But I think it's pretty good actually, looking at this. I mean, when you buy these nuts, there's always likely to be a bit of fine-tuning adjustment to do. You'll almost never get one fit. Oh, I don't know why I'm bothering with that, because okay, let's do the reduction on the saddle first before I make any evaluation of whether the nut's the right height or not. So let's just chuck this off to the side, and we know what the adjustment is going to be. We have the original thingy, a bit mucky. We're going to go 1.2 off the bass side and 0.8 off the treble side. So 1.2 and actually we know that we could go a little more than that, so let's go 1.2. Let's keep it straight. 1.2 and 0.8. So 1.2 off the bass side. What are we looking at? We'll figure out which way is which now. It's not very convincing either way, this intonation pattern. Well, I suppose it is angled. That's the only thing we've got in its favour. That's a bit odd. Okay, we'll call that the bass side. You can see my face at that point. Well, we have to assume that's the bass side because it's got the deeper slot on it. And we'll go down to 0.8 if we can on the treble side. And really, we'll try and join up the best line we can between those two, recognizing there's going to be a little bit of a slope or a gradient between them, and it's not going to be perfect. Okay, so remember last time it worked out that it felt pretty good at the amount that I aimed for. You know, I didn't have to go and give it 2 or 3 goes. The amount I took off the first time worked out perfectly. So I'm kind of half expecting this to be the same situation. So I'm just going to use my marker pen if I can to just colour in as a guide to what we want to take off. There we go. So quite a bit to come off. If you're ever in the position where you're doing this and you find you've got an absolute ton of material to remove, is this on file zoom? No, it wasn't, sorry. If you've got a load to take off, then you can put it in a vise and use the rasp, for example. That will do a good job of it. Okay, so first thing I know is that I'm going to want to take off more on one side than the other. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on here, and I'm going to start by pressing down harder on the bass end than the treble end, and I'm trying to now cut unevenly a little bit, just to put more emphasis on the bass end, and then hopefully I'll end up with a straight line that I can sort of even out. That's not bad. Need to tilt it back a bit, and I get to a point where I sort of sense that I can even out the pressure and be taking the same amount off each side. That's good. And then we'll switch to the middle. And now try and keep the pressure even as we take down the height all round. Take a look. Take a look at your nut, friend. That feels pretty good actually, so we can just keep on going as we are down to the line, and then we should be close to the mark down by the pencil. And we're a little bit light on the treble end now, so I'm just going to turn it over and add a bit of a push on the treble end to try and even that out. Again, we've still got the room to do that without running out of adjustment material. And that's really all this is about. It's about taking it at a rate that you don't overcut before without having a nice level nut. So you're aiming to get level that way and level that way as well. So it's quite a challenging little process. But if you just keep in mind that you get lighter in terms of grit as you get closer to the mark, you should be in good shape. So now I'm going to the finest of the grits, and I'm going to rockabye baby in my workshop. Yeah. Okay, we're now coming up on the line. Looks good. Perhaps a bit heavy. We've got a bit more on the treble side than we have on the bass side. So I will put it round, and we'll just press down a little bit harder on the treble end and let the bass end drag, which will keep it taking material off, but not quite as fast as the treble side. Okay. Pardon me. Right. Yeah, it's a funny old what do you call it? Funny old intonation pattern. It's not really very good, but it's Tusq, and we're starting with it, so we'll keep with it. It's not what I would recognise as a 2 and 3 pattern exactly, but that's what's on there, so that's what I'll go with. Okay, just about on the mark as far as the height is concerned. Now I'm just going to even out the 90-degree if I can. So we have a nice perpendicular nut. I think that's pretty good. Yaw. Yep, I think I'll stop there. Come back, bagpacker. Okay. Right, that way around, I believe. I believe in miracles. I was watching another of Rick Beato's really annoyed rants yesterday. He's finding it impossible to use any fair use material to teach songs in his guitar, his guitar teaching, and it just seems really ridiculous to have so little freedom to teach anything, And he's been, well, God, this is really, look at this. Oh, that is cracked to hell. He keeps pointing out, and this is the real cynicism of it, is that it's not even an algorithm that's chasing him down. What it is these record companies or publishing companies have individuals employed with targets, and their job is to go find the popular channels with the millions of views, go and hunt through them and find by ear whenever that artist, or the teacher or whatever, celeb, is covering a song that's owned, the rights of which are owned by their company, and then they hit him for 6, or more. So it's pretty cynical, and they don't share revenue. They take all his revenue, and then they ask him to take it down. Of course, you can't stand this up like a normal guitar. What did I go from? I thought I went from 3.2 to, get this the right way around. That is just over 2. Something's slightly worrying me here. Yeah, I mean, I hope it's not this that's causing the problem. And this has got quite a bit of movement in it, but under tension that should go back to at least where it was. according to this, we've still got a fair bit we can remove. I'm slightly nervous. I mean, it's down from 3.2, we've got it down to just over 2.5. So there's another at least 0.5 millimetre off there, and I would say that's 0.5 millimetre all round. Okay, let's push on and do a bit more. I mean, I can't really control the movement of this top short of trying to repair it fully, but you know, that's sort of out of the question really, because there's no point trying to repair it dry like this. We'd have to fully rehumidify it, then try and build some, well, even the conventional things of building some reinforcements and gluing them in there with magnets and stuff. I don't really have a chance to do it here because the hole is too small, the sound hole. So that was why my take on this was that there isn't really a lot we can do for it in that department. Let's try and hike this out. Come on, you can do it. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I say, you might just be able to join that together, but that thing's going to try and break again. I wonder, should we try and get some glue in there? And I mean, we can't build a reinforcing strip in, but we could possibly hold those two bits together long enough for this to dry. That's going to take till tomorrow. I mean, there's a chance to get glue onto there and then get this actually potentially pulled together, but I would have to try and get a big magnet in there in such a way that I have to be able to get it out again afterwards. And the question would be, is how much would this change the shape of this? Not a lot. Right, let's get this recut. Let's get this reset, and let's consider doing that glue bit as the final thing, if we can. I would like if we could just seal the crack, but as I say, the normal way we'd put a reinforcement piece in there. That would be, as far as I understand it, be the way to do it. And we don't really have much chance of doing that unless we can get right in there, which seems a bit impossible given the ultra small sound hole. Thanks, Martin. Right, let's take this last bit off. Now, the question is really, how's this going to end up? Even if we pull those two sides of the crack together, is it going to change the shape? I don't think it is actually. I think it's just split because it's dried, but we should be able to join the sides together if we're careful. Chances are we could actually glue them together even if we can't magnet them together, but I would be much happier if it was a full-size acoustic and we could get a repair piece in there, but we can't. I'm using a slightly shorter piece here, as you can tell, to do the sanding, but it's also a bit fresher sandpaper, so it's sort of helping me to cut a little bit quicker. Okay, get in there. Initially I didn't think that those two sides would move together as well as they have on that, so it is a possibility for gluing it, which I didn't think we had before. But I think I would only want to glue it with the strings on. I really don't like the idea of gluing it and then snapping it again when you put it under load. we doing? Still a bit more to go. Can't get much of a run up to this on the short piece, but okay, very nearly there. Just a bit more flattening out to do. Okay, let's do it more on this treble side. I wonder. I wonder if we are able to pull a magnet in. The good thing about putting a magnet in place is that by removing one magnet, of course, you can remove the other one because it's got nothing to hang on to. So as long as we can reach in far enough, we might be able to put two bits together. But I'm not entirely sure we can. I wonder if we can get a reinforcing piece of wood in there. I'd sort of like to do that rather than just glue the edges of something. But we shall have to see. The problem is also we don't want to be putting great big chunks of wood into a thing, so I'm not really sure what I would have that would be suitable. Okay, I think we're at the mark. At the mark. Get set, go. Well, we know that nut works. Potentially, I don't know if it's too high. We'll know when we put this back in now. Strings. Pardon me. It's sort of scary to put this under pressure even because of that bendingness. What would get me? So that two of those. If I had I'm just trying to think out loud. If I had a piece of bendy plastic, right? Piece of bendy plastic, anyone? No. Piece of bendy plastic. Curl it round, fit it in. No, it's got to be stiff enough to go in. It's always the way, isn't it? Well, maybe a cable tie, something like that. Let's have a look. So what you'd want is you'd want to see if I had magnets on there strong enough to clamp onto there, it would be too weak because it would never hold it. It would just go clonk and hit the deck. What I'm trying to think is, could I get a strip of wood in here? I don't even know what the bracing is like in this without putting a camera in there. Could I get something in there? What I can do is I can push down, I can get an edge and wick some glue into there. Then I can push this down and get those together and actually could kind of clamp that in place. So that would stay in place. But there would be no reinforcement on the outside, but it would be the best we could do. What do you think? There's some bracing in there, 2 bits, and I don't know where they go, whether they go down there or there. So we may not even be able to get a piece in there. So I think right now, I think we should get this bit done, and then we should be prepared to glue and clamp that and leave it overnight. So this is probably going to snap off now because this has been bent the wrong way too many times. These strings are ancient. Just trying to get them under a bit of tension. Yeah, so this whole sound thing, I tried to think of other ways of getting a mix of sound, but the problem with sound is that you have to synchronize it absolutely perfectly, or else it's just a mess. And there is a limit to how perfectly you can manually sync in Final Cut Pro. This is okay. This is puzzling me. It seems to be. It appears like it's not making much difference what I'm doing with that saddle, but I can't believe that. Oh. Yeah, see that? That's pulling things around. That's interesting. Wish I had something I could fit in there. Extra light strings only. Well, it's not for the sake of the neck. They're obviously worried about the strength of this, but I mean, what are we? These are light. They're not extra light, but they're light. Feels okay. I mean, the height is, oh, it is better. It has improved it. I mean, that's coming in at still coming in at just nearly 2.5. So there is a bit more room. It's hard to know exactly what distortion and deformation this thing is doing when it's loaded. Clearly, when it's loaded, it's pulling upwards, but it's not doing what you think it would be doing. And frankly, see, I can't. There's nothing I can do to get something in there to hike that up. So we're going to have to live with what it is. That bit can be glued as well. That's the other thing. There's a split there that we can definitely glue. Right. The nut is fairly good, but there's a bit of thing to take down. Let's take a quick gauge of the nut. This is the difficult one to do. Right, we've got 40. What have we got? We've got 70 first, 0.7. More than that. More than that. Where do we go? That's 0.6, is it? 0.6 and 0.2. 0.6 and 0.2 is 8. Okay, so first fret is currently 0.8. Let's just make a note of that. 0.8. And really we want 0.4 maximum, so we've got minus 0.4 millimeters off that, and that's what I'll need to take off the bottom. Regarding this, we could take another 0.5 mil max off that, and then we want to fit that, use the same strings, refit that, push these, put the glue in, pull it up to tension, and then push these things together. But in terms of getting these things to fit together here, it's going to have to be, yeah, I mean, it's not really that easy to do. I'm getting too involved. I want to give it the best chance I can, short of trying to fix it. Let's just drop all these off first. Well, I just want to check on something. Let me see what the gauge is on these strings, because I think these are over heavy for starters. Are they? No, maybe they're not. Yes, these are light. These the next ones are heavier. Right. So I know what I'm doing with this. I need half a mil off, 0.4 off that, and I need half a mil off this. Then I have a feeling that for the sake of this poor wee guitar, I have a feeling that we should attempt to stabilize these cracks and then put it all back together again. For which case I'm going to bin these strings for now, because they've had it. And I also think that we might be obliged to get some other slightly finer strings for this. Although they are light. Let's try this again. What was the ones on there? They're 53, aren't they, at the bottom end of that? And that's 51. Okay. God. Tied up strings. Okay, I think we may get to a sort of limit of what can be done today, but I have a feeling if we extend this out, I was hoping to finish these and get them back to Dom, but I get a feeling that it might be better to try and put these under a glue for a bit, and then also perhaps go and get some even finer strings, if that's what's... God almighty, look at this. That's why I don't like these things being locked in place that way, because they're an absolute nightmare to get undone. Right. Okay, so now really, I know what to do with these two. I'll do those off camera. Just finish those height wise. So my concern is what to do with this. Let's clean this up a minute, because it's got quite a bit of grime on it. I think I just need to try and glue these bits. The problem with this is if it's drying out and it's splitting apart, you can glue things, but it will come apart again because it's splitting apart and there's not enough room. But we'll give it the best shot, and I think that's all I can do. I'll have made adjustments to the playing action as good as I can by the time I've tweaked the nut and tweaked the saddle again, the last bit, one more bit, and I just think I can glue that and get that to stick nicely. There's not a problem with that. That will hold together well, that one there. I think if we push this one down, get glue in there, and probably just lightly press down on here with a clamp, that should hold together. Whether that holds together after it's loaded again is anyone's guess, because I can't really tell you. So I think what I'll do is I'll clean the off camera. I think, since we know where we are, I'll polish these frets just to give them a fret rubber going over the best I can. I think we'll go for the lighter gauge. Probably that's going to put a few days onto the whole thing, but I think we better do it. I don't think there was a kind of time limit on this, but I think I'd rather, if we got the correct or a lighter gauge, if that's really all this guitar can take. I don't use lighter gauge on my Taylor Baby, but it may be a more robust frame than this one. I mean, you can see this one's splitting. The problem is it's going to split with string loading, full stop. Sorry, it's going to split with drying. It's not really to do with the string gauge, so all that string gauge will do is pull this top upwards, if anything. So actually, you know what? I think I'm gonna. Well, here's what I'm going to do, because it's sort of beyond repair in some ways. I'm going to glue this up now. I'm going to cut those things down. I'm going to glue this up now, and I'm going to take it home with the clamp on it, and I'm going to restring it at home when it's done. And I think we'll hope that bit of gluing, which will set overnight, we'll hope that gives it its best chance. And I think I will use these strings because, as I say, if anything, this does need the strings pulling it rather than this sinking down and cracking any further. So in this case, I think it would be slightly better off that it had a little bit more string loading going that way. But we know what to take off this and the nut, so I think that will be it for this one. But what I'll do is, while I'm on camera now, let's get some glue into those places. And it's going to be standard wood glue, and we're just going to try and get it in with some pointy things, and then I'm just going to try and find a way of getting a small clamp onto it. It won't need much, just to hold the neck in place. Sorry, press in the top a little bit. You know, like I said, this is not ideal because really you'd want to dry this thing out, but it could take months to do. So you can see here, I'm now scarily pressing down. Maybe you should see this thing. Gruesome up close vision. You can see the gap there, and so it feels just quite scary to. I'm going to load it on right the way from the top if I can get it into there. Obviously we can always wipe off stuff we don't use, so I've covered as much of that surface as possible and get some of it to run through with a bit of luck. And that's going to sit there for a minute. Now we'll do the same, I don't know if you can see, do the same with that bit at the back. Again, this is, I'll just try and get it to fit in there as far as it will go. You can see that we can probably open it up a little bit, but I'm sort of just gauging the amount of force I can use without doing any further damage. We'll just try and get as much glue into there. You can clean the surface off afterwards. It'd be nice to have a thing you could blow it into there, really, but I don't. I'm going to go right up to the end where the crack extends to, and possibly beyond. Okay, so there's my bit of glue going on. The first one, I have a feeling this one will probably lock into place just like that. It's quite nicely done. And then we'll get some tissue like that. Like that. And that's going to be as good as it's going to get. This one is going to be, this now needs to go down a bit to join up, so again we'll have to remove more of the glue so we get a look in and see what we're actually doing. Okay, so I can see the line. not easy. Wet cloth, slightly wet cloth please, thank you. Just trying to clear up the top as much as possible. Now my idea would be at this point to very lightly clamp it with the aim of, that's the wrong size clamp, it's way too big, come on, where's the little one? It's all too big really, but the idea would be to clamp it with a little bit of this, maybe. Come on, before any of this sits. Where does the blade go when you want it? It's here. Thank you. Sorry about this. Don't know what the view is doing at this point in time. So I'm just going to make a little thin piece of rubber. And the idea will be, I'm just going to put this in here like that. Probably, in this situation, it would probably be a damn good idea to fit that with, fit that with a bit of double-sided tape, just so I can keep it in place as I apply some pressure. See that? Look at that. See, that would be great if I could just get that to stick up a little bit. Now, it might be if I can put something in there and turn it sideways, something large. No, it's got to go through the hole. That's the problem. Something that will go through that hole and turn sideways. Your guess is as good as mine. Well, it's not going to be that. That will go through the hole, but will it turn sideways? It won't go that far through the hole. Let me just cut this with a thing a minute while we're at it. Before time runs out on the glue, let's see if we can do anything with this. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, come on there. Oh, close. Just not quite enough to stay there. It wants to do it, and then it wants to flip off, if you get what I mean. And then that happens. Damnation. Stay there. Okay, that's lifted that up. That's quite good. Then we will go back to this one. Open that up a bit. Come back down on it. God almighty. See, this bit is impossible to handle. Right, that is about as good as it's going to be. So we've pulled that up. It's beaded a little bit of glue so we can rub that back. Same there. Get that as clean as possible. Can't do it all the way, but well, I've done my best, like, you know. That under there, clean it up, clean it up. Okay, well, I can feel that that's sticking up a bit. So it needs a tiny bit more of the push. Yeah, I mean that's the best I'm going to get with these, and it may or may not hold depending on the forces acting on it. Dried out split wood has a force of its own, as you can imagine, but that could hang in there. You never know. Now, it would be good if I could get that to the car in one piece, but I have a feeling that's not really going to want to stay like that. I might be able to, but now I need to move it out of the way, because really I need to do the other bit, finish the other bit, which is the, you know, the thing. Yes, that thing, the saddle and the nut. So maybe it will go over here. Maybe it will sit on there. Maybe it won't. Maybe it will. Maybe it will sit there. Will it sit there? Will it sit there? No. 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 So that one's... oh, crap. So this doesn't really make a lot of sense. You go there, press against there. Yeah, see, it's shrunk. That's the problem with this. It's actually shrunk apart. And even if we can clamp these bits together, wherever I think I've put the clamps. Hello, clamps, 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 clamps on the shelf. Yeah. Even if we glue it together, because it's shrunk, it's not really going to want to stay together. It's just basically, it's the power of shrinking wood, basically, as I said.